All right, I'm going to show you how to draw this daffodil. I have painted mine. This was my practice daffodil, but now I'm going to show you. You're going to need an eraser, a pencil, and then kind of a fine tip black marker to go over it with when it is time to go into your final draft of your daffodil. So I'm working on a half sheet of paper. You can certainly work bigger if you'd like to. The first thing we're going to do is draw a couple of circles. So I want a small circle, which is going to, it's really more of an oval. So I want a small oval, and we're drawing very light on the paper because we're going to erase this later. So I want a small oval, and then kind of a larger oval, but it's going to overlap. So we're just drawing two ovals. So that is step one. I know that you can do this. Overlap some ovals. All right, now we're kind of going to draw our little cup, and we want to come to maybe about here. So this is our little cup for the center of our daffodil. And it's going to come down and really just round out right here. And again, you're going very softly with your pencil. We're just sketching all of this stuff in. We might want it to go out a little more. All right, now we're going to kind of start sketching in some petals. So our petals are all going to start sort of at the bottom of this little friend here. And they're going to go up and kind of round at the top, and they're nice and wide. And they'll come back at the bottom like this. We can round that out a little bit. It needs to be kind of round and floofy. And then we're going to have another petal over here, but we're going to do the same thing. It's going to go up, have that little tip, and come back. So that is petal number 2. And they're still overlapping right now. That's all right. We're not going to worry about that. And then we're going to come in, and petal number 3 is kind of flopped over. So it's a little easier to draw because we don't have to worry about drawing the top part. And then we're going to come in here, and we're going to draw the little flopped over part like that. So you can see how that petal is kind of flopped over. All right, now we've got one that's going to come downward. So we can come kind of this way, and it's going to go face that way a little bit. Whew, surprise sneeze attack. All right. So this petal comes down, and we still have that little, kind of at the top, we have that curve. And like the end of a little lemon. All right. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and add one more. But it's sort of coming a little bit from behind this one. So there's one more. And then because they have 6 petals, you'll want another one. But you can decide, is that going to be coming out this side or this side? I think mine, let's see. Over here I did 2. And I put the 1 up here. So let's add it. Let's just add it there. I think that's where I want this one. So it's that same sort of little shape. And actually, I think I want this one to come a little further over. Maybe. So we're just kind of sketching them in. And then we can come in. We're going to have a stem here. So here's our little stem. And then we'll have some leaves. But let's go ahead and get started with our pen because we've got the blueprint down. The first part that I want to get in there is the center because that's the part that really sticks out. So around this first oval that we drew, we're going to do a line that is, it's a bumpy line. So it's a line like this. So you might want to practice that on another piece of paper. It's a wiggly line, but that's how we're going to make this shape. So just practice doing that. Practice coming up and down, but with round at the top, round at the bottom. That's how we're going to make, it's like a little line of ghosts at Halloween. So we're going to make that first. So that is, I'm just going to go in right here and I'm going to start with my wiggly line. So up and down, up and over. And I am going just on the outside of that first small oval. And as I get here, I know I need to connect, so I'm going to be a little bit careful. I'm going to zoom in for you so you can really see this, what we're doing here. All right. Now we're going to make this little tiny line, and it's just a line that helps us understand where the center of that flower is. All right. Then we're going to add the bottom. So I'm going to come down here and just sort of trace over that line, which is already there. And I know that it doesn't look contoured like it does over here, but we're going to accomplish that with some little lines. And I'm going to tilt sideways. Out of this line, I'm going to have my little stamen pistils. I can't remember what they're called exactly. But they're kind of, so it's two parallel lines with a little knob at the top, and then same thing but shorter over here, and then two more. So I'll have a tall one and then a shorter one. So there's the little kind of inside of our flower. And now we can start working on our petals. I'm going to start, what petal to start with? This is always the hardest decision for me. All right, I'm going to start with this petal. So I'm going to come up and around and back down. And this petal is going to be a little folded over on the edge. So I'm just going to start here. I'm going to make a little droopy line with a peak and come down. So that is our first petal that's a little bit foldy. And then we'll do this next petal, which is also a little bit foldy. So we can kind of come out and around and back into the center. And then we'll just do a little lumpy line right there. And I know that it doesn't look like much yet, but once we get those contour lines in there, you're really going to be able to see it. Then let's work on this one. So it's going to have that nice curve at the end and come back there. So now we have 3 petals. And then I'm going to work this one in there. And we just want to sort of try to give it that same shape. And then I'm going to tilt my paper because it just works better for me like that. And let's add 2 more petals. So I am just really trying to decide, do I want 2 here or do I want 1 here, 1 here? It's a tough decision, but I think you just can't go wrong either way. So I'm going to add 1 here. That one's pretty simple, right? That was the easiest petal. And then 1 more. And you can see I wasn't super happy with the placement here, so I just went a different place with my pen. But that is the main, that's the main structure of our daffodil. Now, let's work on the stem. Stem, pretty simple. It's just 2 parallel lines. So you come down with one, and then you kind of stay the same thickness all the way down. And then we can put leaves on the stem, and your leaf can be flapping over or it can be straight up. So I'm going to do a little bit different on this one. So I'm going to have one that's pretty straight up, and then this one is going to go outward a little bit. I want my daffodils to be a little bit different. And you can go all the way down to the bottom of the page if you want to. I think that's what I'm going to do. Why not? All right. And then we can start adding our shading to this daffodil. So you can see that it really makes it look like there is some depth in there. I'm going to turn these just so you can see what my finished product looks like as I am working on this one. So the first thing I want you to do is get another piece of paper and practice just you can make with your marker some lines thinner, some lines thicker. But what I want you to do is figure out how to really get that scratchy looking line, like where it's thinner at the edge. So let's start with this folded over petal. And at this center, we are going to do a lot of little quick lines that radiate out, and they really help the eye understand that this is a curved thing. It's interesting the way it works. And then under these little parts, we'll do some smaller lines. And I am barely touching this pen to the paper. And then we can kind of do some that are a little bit thicker and maybe make some tiny dots to the center of that flower. But we don't want to like a lot of those. We just want a few. All right. So that is petal number 1. Petal number 2. I'm just going to turn the paper because that's the way I work best. Petal number 2, same thing. So we're going to have these scratchy lines coming out from the center, and they are sort of following the contour of the petal, if that makes sense. So I am just adding however many I feel, and then we'll come add some from the top too. So I'm going to have a couple that are a little bit longer, and then a couple that come down and have little dots. And that just kind of gives our eye something to think about. All right, now let's work on this top one because it's conveniently located right here. And that's an easy direction for my hand to work. So I'm just going to kind of make these go along with the contour on the side of this petal. And then we'll do a few coming down from the top as well. Don't worry about that pencil being there. We are just going to erase that later. So then a couple of little broken lines like that. You can always put more if you think you might need more. It's completely up to you. You can always add more, so I say start light. And then we will work on this petal. So this petal's coming up this way. So we want our lines to go up and out this way. And we don't want to go over that little edge of the center. So we want to skip that for sure. And then we'll have some that come down with our little lines. And there's that one. So now, same thing on this one. And it's really starting to look like it's got some depth to it. I love this part. These black and white line drawings of flowers are kind of fun. You can always paint it in or color it in if you want to, but you don't have to. You can leave it this way and it's still kind of really fun to look at, I think. Right, so we are just adding some little stripies here. And then we've got one more petal to do. So we need to think the petal starts down here, so we don't want just a whole lot of stripes up through here. This is probably really dark. But we just want short stripes here. And then we can have our regular size stripes coming down. From the top part. All right, friends, you are doing an amazing job. Now, let's work on the middle part. So I'm going to put them right next to each other like this. This is the way that it works easiest for me if I turn my paper this way. We're going to do stripes here, our little scratchy stripes. And you can see how when we curve them a certain way, it makes it seem like this really is curvy. So these stripes are really helpful for us. So the ones in the center kind of go straight up, but the ones at the edge can be a little curvy. And then we're going to have a couple of the little dotty things. And that's that. Now we'll do the little shading inside these little humps. So find your little hump and you're just going to do tiny lines downward. Tiny, tiny, tiny lines downward. So they're not very deep, these lines, not at all. And you can put some here if you want. I don't know if we need them there, but I'm going to put a few here. But we're only putting these where it would have a shadow on the flower. So like we don't need one here because if we think about that, we're just looking through to the background there. That's not an actual flower part. Now we can put a few above this line and they can overlap the little flower pieces that we drew. Because what this is doing is just showing that there is shadow there. This is our little center. There we go. And then on the downward humps at the top, let's do a few. So let's do like a few here, and you don't have to do a lot. Just a little goes a long way with these friends. All right. Do I want some here too? Maybe a couple here too. All right. So now we've got those all shaded in. Everything is looking great. Let's turn it. And I don't think we need a lot more shading on the upper part of the flower. What I've done on the stems is I've kind of done the thing where you like split it in half. And then you can sort of split each of these in half. And you can do as many lines as you're comfortable with. I'm going to probably do fewer in this one than I did on the original. But you could always do more. So that's a nice way to get those lines on the leaves. And then on the stem, this is interesting. So I'm kind of just doing light, long, broken lines that are different lengths. Some longer, some shorter. But what I want is the break in the line to overlap. So we don't have those lines breaking in exactly the same place. It's kind of like when we draw texture on a tree. So you're just putting some light lines in there. And then if you have any gaps, you can put smaller lines. But this is it for me, friends. I think this is all I need. Let me zoom us back out. There we go. So I've drawn it, and now I just need to make sure I'm going to sign it. But what I want to do is make sure that I get rid of all of those pencil lines before I go in to color it or add any extra things. So I'm going to go ahead and erase all my pencil lines. Hopefully it won't make the camera shake too terribly bad. But I'm just going to go in and gently erase all of my pencil lines. Get rid of my ovals. That's why it's important for your pencil lines to be sort of light, so they don't make a big old dent in your paper that you can still see when you erase. All right. So I think that should be all of the pencil lines. And you know me, I don't like to sweep my eraser stuff off with my hand. I like to get my big giant sweeper brush and sweep it off. That way I keep my hand oils off of my watercolor paper. All right. There you have it. You can always go in and add some other details if you want. You can always do a little more of this sort of shading on the leaves. You could add a border. You could put a butterfly. But I am just going to paint mine because I'm very happy with the way it looks. So that's what I'm going to do. I hope yours is looking good. And I will go ahead and do the time-lapse video of painting it so that you can see what I do, and hopefully you're successful with yours.